So I started making measurements to set the posts for the handrails. This is picking up where I left off in the last video, and it's the last video of this series. I had to account for where I had spacers between the facing board and the first joist, as well as gaps that I had between the beams and the spacers. You can see the center line of a spacer marked by those screws. And then once I established where the posts were going to be, I went back to the border and made my marks and cut out those holes. The posts are going to have 1/4 inch overlap rebates, so that would allow for a little bit less water going straight down into the joint, and it would look prettier on top, of course. So I spent the next seems like eternity with that handsaw cutting 1/4 inch rabbets in those posts. And then I know I had a different dialogue in my head when I was miming this particular section, but basically all I was doing was saying that I had cut out a notch to fit over that beam so that it would snug up against the spacer that I had put in there. Then I marked these posts as I had placed them so that one side I would always know is facing out, and the two sides that were facing each other were always facing in. And I did this for all of them, and then I marked on top of the posts 1 through 6.
Local codes say that the gap, frankly any gap, either this way or this way, in a hand railing has to be smaller than a 4-inch sphere. This is, of course, roughly the size of a baby's head. So we have to make these gaps smaller. Well, it just happens that this is 3.5 inches. And so that meets code.
So the next step was to line up the marks that I had made in my clamps, make measurements so that all the balusters and handrails would be level, and then began cutting out the mortises. I was originally going to chop out all the mortises with my hand chisels because I couldn't figure out a way of using the power router that I had to make uniform pieces. But the owners of the house had already purchased furniture for the deck, and it was arriving. So I had to basically freehand the rest of the mortises after cutting this one out. At least I had this one to use as a template. And so I routed out almost to the lines on all of the mortises at the depth that I needed, using an up spiral mortising bit, and then finished them off with the chisels. So here I am cutting the tenons for the handrails, the top and bottom rails. This redwood split off very nicely. It had acclimated to the climate. The top rail tenons have a 1/4 inch rebate, and the bottom rails do not, since it's not necessary to have such a thing for something that's not going to be visible. And here are the top and bottom rails. The problem with this wood being so dry and acclimated is that as I was cutting these mortises in the bottom rail to fit this tenon, a very neat chunk popped out between two mortises. So I had to change my plan. I had to cut a channel between those mortises, and I had to do it for all of them at that point. And so I cut spacers for the bottom rail that fit into that mortise and matched up the balusters. And you see it worked out pretty well. And I'm happy that we're done to this point. This is the last video in this series because I have a lot of other things coming up that I think are a lot more exciting, but I just wanted to share this final product with you. If you liked the video, please take a moment to comment, hit that like button, subscribe for future videos. There are more coming, and enjoy these previous videos to show where I've been and give you an idea where I might be going. And as always, thank you for watching.